Welcome, you beautiful faces, to AFL Off-Season Live, where we are knee-deep in list management, a couple of days away from delisted free agency, where we start getting things happening. Me and Let Dog are to take you through the last, 9 teams?
8 or 9.
Something like that. We're missing out St Kilda because we did it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 teams. We're going to go through all the things that have happened today as well. As always, joined by my good mate, Lechosaurus Rex. Lech the Dog, how are you doing?
Mate, you just call me the Leckness monster.
Quality.
No, I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I'm only, 3 days into the unofficial trade period, and I've already seen enough to delete Twitter, but no, life's good, mate. Life's good. Sam Draper's worth pick 4, apparently.
That's good. It's good to see. Yeah, I've got to say, it has been... I don't know how chat are finding it, and g'day to all of you coming in. It does seem a little bit full on this year, doesn't it?
There's a lot of chatter. The trade period extends. Obviously, it only goes for however many days, but we're talking about it all year now. I do think it'd actually be better if we had a trade period that rolled through until the mid-season draft. I'd actually get rid of the mid-season draft, but trade period just ran all the way through, and then you wouldn't have such a condensed portion of trades at this part of the year. But yes, there is a lot.
Yeah, mate, honestly, journalists... I've got to say, journalist takes are getting the worst. I did see a journalist take just before we went live that quote said Carlton shouldn't have traded. I mean, shouldn't have delisted Jack Martin because, quote, he would have unlocked the SDK deal, which has actually made me feel physically sick and made me very excited to do trade and draft talk with you guys and girls because I needed intelligent stimulus. I have had my hair done. Thank you, Kate. Hey, it's not just females that feel better when someone notices. So thank you for noticing, Kate, my lovely Kiwi friend. But let's get stuck into it. Obviously, a little bit to discuss. We just mentioned Jack Martin. 2 bits of trade news. We'll bundle 1 bit of trade news to North Melbourne when they come up. But Geelong have announced that they're getting Jack Martin on a free. Probably the worst kept secret in the AFL. But thoughts on that, Lekdog and chat? Thoughts on Jackus Martin?
I think it's a great play for Geelong. I think that the upside for them is massive. He's probably going over there on a cheap contract. He's free. He's a mature ager. It's a tough role to fill. The downside for them is, depending on how much they pay him, very little. It's a list spot, right? So I guess we'll find out if it was our training facilities or his application. Or maybe he'll just be injured all year again and that'll be it.
Well, we did talk about Geelong. If you look here, not many picks at all, because that pick's going to go to Bailey Smith. And obviously, with him being delisted, what is really important about them being delisting him is that they can pay him as they play as well. They can lower his contract value, where obviously Carlton were a little bit stymied. So it makes sense for them. They haven't got a lot of list spots to play with when they're doing it. I don't mind it. Before we start, Ryan and Mel, g'day to you. I'm sorry, Kay. I know you live in New Zealand, and I just assume you're a Kiwi. So that is on me. I apologise. Do we think players have too much power? Doug, do you feel like they have too much power?
Do they have too much power? I think I'm always going to side with the athletes in pretty much in every sport to maximise their career, given how short it is generally. I think the issue is we probably don't have the reins to pull on the other side of things, and the player movement in the AFL is still very amateurish across the board. So there's not really ways for players to move. Probably the ones that need it the most. I'm talking about your guys who aren't your upper echelon players, the guys who just want to have a crack. It's tough for them to move. They require delisting and stuff like that. So to answer your question, I don't think they've got too much power. However, I if I was in charge, I would restructure the whole thing completely.
They only have power when they say that their missus has opened a hair salon in Victoria, but specifically you have to play for Geelong or someone like that. Like, that's the only time that they have the true power. But good question here from our mate Tez. Reasonable estimate. Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, Let Dog. This is more your forte, but wasn't it $1 million front loaded? But then they pushed it back to year 2 because we had COVID, and then wasn't it something like a flat rate of 350?
Yeah, I don't remember the details, but it was a front-loaded deal. He lost a significant chunk of that in COVID. We pushed some of that back into the second year because we're good blokes. Match payments, it depends how his contract's structured, because I know players who predominantly get paid through match payments. So they've got a base salary that's very low and they rely on playing. I suspect if his management was in charge, they probably would have had very little in the way of match payments and maybe some bonuses on how many games played. So yeah, I think, I don't know, 350, 400, maybe. What's the par at the moment? It's about 400, I think, for player average.
Yeah.
So maybe a touch under that just because of the way it was front loaded. I don't think getting him off the books is going to, all of a sudden open up salary cap to go and get Christian Petrarca. So yeah, I don't think he'd be on a particularly high amount of money.
You know what? It's funny Let Dog said that as well. It's a very unforgotten thing about contracts, ladies and gentlemen, just how the AFL structure them, because I know a couple of players, some on rookie lists, and they actually earn about the same as your standard office junior if they don't play. So it's not as lucrative if it's really lucrative if you're on the park and playing, but if you're not, for the amount of work, you see, I wouldn't do what they do if I was like on a rookie deal. Fuck that. It sounds a dream job, but if you're not playing, it is. But we move on to the Giants, and Giants usually around this time of year are a selling club, aren't they? We know GWS, we're Carlton fans. It's literally our go-to when we can't develop anyone. We have this great idea, let's take on someone who's 23 from them and ruin his career instead of ruin our own draftees. They've been, again, quite active. Isaac Cumming, he's nominated Adelaide. Harry Perryman is the biggest shock of the year. He went to Collingwood when he only posted a picture of him dressed up as a Collingwood player about 2 weeks before the trade period started. James Peatling, now he's down to the Dogs and Adelaide, but GWS have put in a bumper offer, it has to be said, which would take him onto the senior list as well, because it's a multi-deal. Xavier O'Hallahan, Wade Dirksen, all linked with trades as well, and Nick Haynes has nominated the Blues. They've got 3 list spots at the moment, 3 to decide. They've signed Keith this morning. A lot of picks. Logan Smith, one to watch for the rookie draft, maybe even a late bid, but that's who's tied to him in the draft. What do we think they're going to do? Because they're one of the few teams that have been linked with no one.
Yeah, they don't tend to bring in a lot of players. They do stuff around the edges, your Braden Pruses and stuff like that. So there may still be a senior player they look to bring in. They're pretty good at developing their talent internally. So in terms of their youth, they're probably not looking to get heaps of young guys in. They've got an offer in front of Connor Stone, and I think he's weighing that up. Peatling, they'd be absolutely desperate to retain, and his price just keeps going up. Him playing through the final certainly helped that, and he's always been a great player. When he gets the opportunity in the midfield, he's just not always been able to crack in. He's their number one priority, I'd say. And then if he leaves, he's not going to be opening up any salary cap for them. They might be opening up a bit of salary with Cumming and Perryman leaving, because I imagine they were pretty reasonably paid players. So they'll have a bit there to look at some guys, and it'll either be, I imagine, re-upping Peatling on a decent contract, or maybe they look to and it's not going to be this, but your Matt Kennedy type player who's been asked to look around, has played senior football, isn't too old. They might look to fill a couple holes that way.
I agree. I mean, you know what? We talk about balanced lists, but you just scroll down their list. It's incredibly balanced. And it's not talked about enough. At this stage, before we have trades as well, it is the 13th oldest list in the league, right? Which is really good. And it's 11th for games played in that list as well. So they're in a really, really good position. And you look at the key players here. Look, Himmelberg, he's come on, 28. Riccardi about to hit his prime. Always blags my head that Kelly's the same age as Hogan, because it feels like Kelly's been around longer than Jesse Hogan. But you look all their core players in the prime, they don't need a lot. And again, they're going to get some decent return, because the Collingwood deal is a Zach Williams deal, 900k. So that could be band one comp. So they are linked with Jake Stringer very loosely. That's a good point. They are. So we can put that in there. Jake Stringer is literally their type of player, isn't he, as well? Because he is one of them that will come in at next to nothing.
Come in for nothing, kick 40, change his entire off-field attitude. He'll all of a sudden be a superstar. I guess for them, they're aging a little bit in that inside mid, so that's probably why they're going to work really hard to keep Peatling on and be that next player that takes up that mantle. And the other thing is, with Cumming, Perryman, and Whitfield getting slightly on in age, they may be one short in that part of the ground, but we sort of always discuss this. I think that's probably the easiest part in the ground to find a player, that sort of halfback kicking player. So I'm not stressed about them. I think they're in a really, really strong position moving forward. And, they turn guys like Brent Daniels into superstars, and half the comp doesn't even know who Brent Daniels is, but they just seem to do it over and over again.
Mate, I agree. And Kai makes a great point. They're the type of club that they'll back themselves in. So I could see them taking 8 and 14. Let's just have a look at the old draft board. But if you look, let's just say they take 14. You can see them going for like a Taj Houghton. And let's say it's band one and it's a healthy band one. If they got Murphy Reed and Taj Houghton, it'd be off its tits, wouldn't it?
Well, and the thing is that they pretty regularly give senior games to their young players, so they don't really sit them on ice. Obviously, they have to earn it, but they tend to trust the young players in their list. So one of those, if they went and got two of those guys, one of them's playing 15 games next year.
Mate, in a healthy spot. And then we go to another side who is in an incredibly healthy spot as well. The Hawthorn Football Club, who are, at this stage, without trades, the second youngest list in the league, right? Second youngest side in the league. A bit of work to do on the old draft front. You've got DGB, Ethan Phillips, Josh Bennett, Jack O'Sullivan, and Harvey Morrison that they may re-sign or may give away. Finn McGuinness is getting a little bit of interest from Essendon and Sydney. Obviously, though, the big ones, they're bringing in Josh Battle and Tom Barras, and a few people talking about SDK in the chat. Based on history, he's definitely going to be a first and a second at worst if Carlton were to trade him. Probably 2 firsts, and quite rightly so, because it's a key position defender. They're hard to find. But what could be really fascinating about this one is we went through this last year with Hawthorn fans. I know a few of you are in chat, and they were talking about Sam Frost going, he's shit, that's a vulnerable position. This is why sometimes it pays you not to bite today and go have that discussion. Lewis Young, can he do the job for a year? Can we keep Mitch McGovern fit for 12 months? And then next year, when he's coming out of contract, we have a lot better pull. That's what Hawthorn did. They made Sam Frost work, and he played really well, Sam Frost, and he's linked away with St Kilda. But look at that. For a year, they are going to give up basically pick 13 to bring in 2 prime age key position players.
No, it's a great position to be in. Apparently today, Sam Frost manager said he was going to stay at the Hawks. And shout out to whoever said in chat, Damien, Harry Morris has signed on for 2 years as of today. So we can, they announced it a couple hours ago. So we can put him through to 2026, Pom.
Yeah. And just so you know, you've been asking when this is released. I wanted to just go through this with you. I will release this on Google Docs tonight, so you can have a play yourself. But there we are. So,
look, Pom, to bring in, what they deem as a position of need in that key position spot, but it's one they've been able to sort of hold the fort with a guy like Sam Frost is awesome for them. What I think it does mean is that someone like Denver Granger Barras is available. I think he kind of intrigues me as a prospect. I think he's got upside that we haven't seen yet. And, maybe he'll just be a battler for his whole career, but I do think that he's someone who will find a new home and develop. Those other guys on the list, Ethan Phillips, Bennett, O'Sullivan, I'd struggle to see them moving on, if not re-signing with Hawthorn.
Well, they're in a wonderful position, aren't they? Because right now, you look at that list and we talk about balanced. I think Hawthorn have mastered the rebuild because I don't see anything disgusting with it. I don't look and go, shit the bed, where you are in your rebuild, you need fixes. So I think they're going to go in this. And you know what? I think historically, a team that jumps early, historically falls quickly, right? I reckon their future first is probably an all-time value. So I would be watching Hawthorn like a hawk, pardon the pun, because I reckon they may be one of the teams that jumps at anyone who's looking to trade out of the draft. I reckon they'll just stay quiet and go, I think there's enough ambiguity. That's really hard to say.
Ambiguity.
That's it. With our future first and where we'll finish next year, what can you buy? What do you think will finish for us to get value? So Hawthorn are a team I'm watching in this trade period because they're in that beautiful position. Sit back, watch all the other teams be desperate, and we see it every year. One club just comes out of nowhere and snags a player. So Hawthorn, I reckon, key forward. I like their key forwards. Mitch Lewis, for me, is that question mark, though. Can he stay fit? I reckon if there is a key forward who comes available, like the Ollie Lord thing, I wouldn't be surprised to see Hawthorn go, well, are we a better prospect than Collingwood to you?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to say. And I also think there's a reasonable chance James Sicily becomes even more of a swingman than we saw towards the back end of the year. You add in 2 Jet defenders, he's gonna absolutely dominate as a third man, but it gives them some flexibility to put him forward, which for some reason teams still haven't been able to work out how to stop that.
Mate, I agree. It's going to be a fascinating trade period. Denver Granger Barras is a really interesting one because it is becoming in vogue. Like everyone at the moment, like we're talking about Sam DeConey and getting chat, like everyone's obsessed with 2 sexy key defenders. The model for me, when I look at valuable defenders, I look at players like Keith, who's just been re-signed incidentally. I look at Sam Frost. I look at Harrison Petty when he was down the back. These defenders that are willing to let someone else be the superstar. I would say if you're a team that has a guy who plays from the key position like Sicily does with such potent intercept power and danger, you're wanting a perfect defender. I'm looking at you, Collingwood. Sam Frost would be top of my list because he is probably, aside from Jack Payne, the best second defender in the league.
Yeah, he just gets the job done. He's this is a throwback, but I used to love Michael Jamison from the Blues.
Yeah.
And similar sort of thing, like not a superstar, just gets the job done.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I just think that Sam Frost to me is one that I think could be a little good get. And just this Finn McGuinness thing, already you can see Hawthorn's plan taking shape. A guy with incredible talent, not quite in the team, but look at the teams that are sought after. One team that's probably fighting with Hawks to be in the 8, and one team that's fighting for the title. Just shows you they're starting to get already that little conveyor belt of talent starting to emerge.
Yeah, and I think Finn McGuinness is the classic, like, there's upside. He's played senior football, but I don't think there's so much upside. Like, internally, they're probably not thinking there's so much upside that if we lose him, it's the end of the world. So I think, he's your classic 23, 24, 25th best guy. Upside is maybe he becomes a best 18 sort of player. So you can afford to lose him, particularly with, the rest of the list where it currently sits.
Well, I mean, here we come. We come to a club that I'm excited about talking about. We've got the Melbourne Demons, and they are a team that literally, if we were doing this when we actually did it the other day, we had nothing to talk about. But in recent development, Clayton Oliver being linked to leave Melbourne, which probably isn't a surprise. I'm actually surprised anyone's surprised, because does anyone else think, just controversially as we look at their list, they've got Tomlinson, Horay and Joel Smith to decide on. Tomlinson looks like he's going to leave. Alex Neil-Bullen, we know, has nominated Adelaide. Tom Campbell, already delisted by them. He's already coming to them. He's requested that deal as a delisted free agent. But anyone else think that this is a desperate attempt to keep Petrarca happy? Am I reading too much into it? But the rumours about Petrarca were all around the treatment and what happened with Clayton Oliver, and everyone assumed he was mistreated. Is it not? Does anyone else get the inkling this is Petrarca who felt like maybe he was given too much love, and that's what he's pissed off about?
That's an interesting theory, Pom. I hadn't really considered it. I don't know what it is. Clayton Oliver was a tough one, right? Because he, at his best, last year, whatever it was, they were offering 2 firsts for him. Then he goes and has a shit off season and a shit year, and all of a sudden his name's coming up again. I mean, something doesn't add up. Maybe it's just media hype, but I know there's a lot of people that hate the AFL media out there, but it's not all just made up. Like, it has to come from somewhere. So there has to be some truth to some of the stuff. They would be worse off without him. I think we're probably... I don't think this year's a true representation of what he'll produce in the coming year, 2, 3 years at age 27. So you're selling low if you're selling him now. If it's to keep Petrarca happy, maybe that's something you consider. It's the other names that worry me most is like, Neil Bullen's going to leave. He's a handy best 18 player. Tomlinson, handy depth. And the names coming in aren't super exciting. Well, for a team that's already struggled as well.
They're not either, and they're also recently linked. I forgot Matty Owies there, but Zong Steele. I did call it in one of my videos. I just think, for me, it looks... I just think there's more to the story than we know. And when I heard the Petrarca thing, they were desperate to cover it up. We know Clayton's had his off-field indiscretions and issues, and we wish him the best. I just think that club's a fire sale. And in the last couple of days, Oliver, Pickett, 2 massive parts of their club. He's only 27 years old.
And contracted.
I just think it's a worry, because Neil Bullen's played nearly every game. He's 28. And he's going to Adelaide, which in my opinion is a backward steps on the ladder. I think this is just a fascinating one to watch. And I've said it in my draft videos, their pick doesn't really suit their needs. So they've got pick 5. Yeah. That's a midfield territory. So suddenly you're in a position. And Slobber, my boy, welcome, mate. I'm gutted you left the show. I love you, mate, but enjoy KFC. Mate, treat yourself to some popcorn chicken, mate. But This is going to be an interesting one because I've got a feeling here they're going to be really fucking active. I think I said it in my video yesterday. I think Clayton Oliver and Keziah Pickett locks to leave. Absolute locks.
Well, Melbourne fans are pretty disheartened by where their list is at. So I think if you have a couple of players leave, I think it's all you got to start to look at blowing it up. I don't think they're in a position where, unless they retain these players, Oliver, Pickett, etc., Tomlinson, we know Neil Bullen's going. I don't think they're in a position where they can afford to go big and try and have another swing at a premiership. I think they need to probably try and consolidate the list a bit because, and it's just one example, but I was pretty anti Jack Billings being picked up by Melbourne last year for the same reason. I just didn't think their list was in a spot where that's the kind of player you want to pick up. And the names that are linked to them are in a very similar boat. Like, it's just guys that they're not going to make the difference of an Alex Neil-Bullen, a Clayton Oliver, etc.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and chat, brilliant. Kai, I think Constante makes sense. Like, they have got to moneyball their way out of this. But honestly, I think you've got nothing if you haven't got culture. I'm not going to speculate about like the rumours like Reddit of drug culture and shit. But there's obviously something wrong at Melbourne. And I think Matt Gandolfo and Kai make great calls. Matt Kennedy, good religious man. So that's going to come in and bring a culture shift. People like that. Constante, we know, good kid, clean record. Pickett, no offence, but the way he plays, I imagine he's got twat written on him, right? That's me speculating, but he seems a bit of a dickhead. Clayton Oliver's obviously got his off-field issues. If you can get them out, you've got to save. Looking at their age profile, because their age profile, Melbourne, people don't talk about Melbourne's list profile, but it's the fourth oldest list in the league, right? They should be top 3, top 2, right? They have to do something now to save this list while players are coming into their prime, or, as you said, Black Dog, you blow it up. So, and I'd say this draft is probably the blow it up draft, isn't it? If you can turn people's heads with established players, that this might be the draft that maybe you start pushing the boat out.
Well, I'll tell you what. If your plan is to bring in Wade Dirks and Tom Campbell, you're going to be worse next year than you were this year. If your game plan is, Clayton Oliver will be better than he was last year, maybe, but you got to improve on this list. And, they've got some young pieces that I like, but just as a whole, it's kind of a list in two halves. And you need to go one way or another, as you just said.
You know what? And I'll stand by this. I said it yesterday in my thing. Sam de Koning, I thought was I stand by what I said. I don't think Carlton are targeting Dan Houston. I genuinely don't. I think Carlton are targeting Dan Houston for a future first. And if it's anything more, they're going to say fuck off. SDK, soon as I saw Beveridge release the article, I instantly put it in my bullshit basket. But there is no escaping. You know what? If I was Melbourne, I'd be on the phone to Carlton about StephenB. I'd be like, look, you guys are trying to have a medium-sized back. We've got the best back player in the last 10 years. Do you want him? Do you want him? Do you want him?
Yeah.
Like, we'll do him at half the cost for a year, and you draft a player. You draft a player he can learn off, but we can fix your McGovern-Kent problems today.
Yeah, and I think he's that archetype. If you're going for the flag, if you're the Blues, which I think they have to at the point their list is at, he's the kind of player you're looking at. Who's someone who can still impact on field, different role to Nick Haynes, who's a similar age. They're the type of guys. He's like your super how do I want to say it? Sam Frost is your LD StephenB at this point in his career is what I'll say. So Sam Frost is to Hawthorn's backline, StephenB could be to a backline with Jacob Wiedering in it.
Tell you what, chat, keep doing what you're doing as well. If you see any issues, I've already got Bailey Smith requesting a trade to Geelong, so I've already got him on
Geelong.
here. I've already got him. I preempted that one. I did an Australian media and have no
Didn't wait
mail
for it to officially come out.
Yeah, I have no mail. I just made it up. You know what, IBO? Right, just before we move on, with Petrarca, you've got to build, like, when you look at the contracts here, 2029 with Petrarca, 2030 with Oliver. You've got to choose one to build around, haven't you? Do you reckon Petrarca is still that sniff? Like, do you think Petrarca is really committed to Melbourne?
I don't. To me, it just feels like the thing on the last day of trade period, they'll start talking about it to try and keep people watching that stream. They'll be like, oh, there's a late chance Christian Petrarca could leave. And maybe they're right. But at this stage, I'm just going to take Melbourne for their word. If I was choosing one to build around, I would choose Petrarca over Oliver. And I love Clayton Oliver. I think there's a world where you can have both. But whether that keeps them both happy or not, that I can't answer.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it was so wishy-washy. Like when Dan Houston said he was going to stay, and I said it, every year I say this, I don't want to sound like a smart aleck, but every year a player comes out and says, I don't want to leave. And every year I say, well, he's not going to fucking do it at the BNF and say, fuck you, peace, is he? Yeah. He's going to lie. Do you know what I mean?
Dan Houston has already done that this year.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, and great point, Matt, Richard, because it fucking annoys me. Because it's like when someone has an affair on their wife, they never fucking go home and say, I'm banging the secretary. They get found out. That's the problem with deceit. So, yeah, I'm not 100% convinced. Like, I've got a feeling this is just Pom speculation. So if I'm going to get sued for this, this is in Pom's head, reading between the lines. But I think Petrarca has basically said, I'll stay if you get rid of him. That is it. Or Petrarca's naive and he's been told clubs won't match our 3 first for you. And he's just happy to stay. But I reckon everyone on Melbourne's list is gettable. But we come to one of my favourite clubs to talk about. We've had the second youngest. We're now at the baby stage. And this is a club I am very intrigued about because for the first time in rebuild history, someone has entered the 3rd year of their rebuild and said, you know what we need? We need a bit of fucking grit. We need a little bit of fucking maturity. And we need to protect our young Jets. And lo and behold, these bastards are doing it. They have got Jack Darling and Luke Parker, 2 recruitments that I can't rave about enough. Jack Darling, the best second forward in the AFL of the last decade. He's made a career out of being the second forward. What a brilliant acquisition to train your young core. And then Luke Parker, we talked about it with the Petrarca video I did. Goal-kicking mids are the hardest thing to get right in the AFL. And you have got, again, one of the best statistical goal-kicking forwards in the last decade with a shitload of midfielders who potentially could be that. And they don't even have to play. They've just got to be around training every day, instilling this belief and what I would do in these situations. Great picks they've got. The rumours have started to come out that them and Eagles are looking to trade down. I think for North, it's the perfect time to trade down this year. Darling, what do you think he'll cost? What, pick 40, would we say? I mean,
I don't even think it. Yeah, Parker maybe 40. Darling, you know, it might not even be a live pick, to be honest, in the end.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's probably going to be one of them future fourths, and we'll just spit on it.
Jay from Centre Bounce is watching Pom. He's tuned in specifically for the North Melbourne. Now, I don't know how much of our content Jay watches when we do list analysis stuff, Pom, but you and I have been very boyish on the core of this North Melbourne list for some time. They didn't address some clear holes last year that we thought they would, but I think on a whole, or at least I'll speak for myself, where their core of their list, I'm very excited about. And to your point, before we just quickly look at the rest of their list, the Darling and Parker inclusions are exactly what I was begging Carlton to do for years during our rebuild. We never pulled the pin. We never had the I don't know if it's guts, but we never decided to go down that path. I think Brisbane did a similar thing where they did bring in that talent. It's probably launched their rebuild forward a little bit quicker. Big all in on both of those selections.
So I'm going to go bold here. I've gone bold every show we've done. Telling you right now, Harry Sheasel, all Australian, half forward, because the AFL will cheat, with Luke Parker being at training every day. You watch the Shees go into another fucking stratosphere in 2025. Big call from Pom. As soon as Supercoach opens up, all of you open the app, click add player, click Sheasel. Thank me later.
Yeah, I was going to anyway, Pom, but that does make me feel happy. I just wanted, there's some comments saying like Parker and Darling are cooked or whatever, but I just like, Darling played 21 games, kicked 22 goals. Parker played only the 10 games because he had that big suspension, remember? But he kicked 1.4 goals a game. Like between them, you're adding into 2.5 goals a game to your team straight away, assuming they can output that again. I just think it's a no-brainer, and it's what they do for the other. It's less about what they bring in themselves and what they allow other players to do. So in theory, Larky becomes a more dangerous prospect. He had a very down year this year compared to the previous year. As you said, Sheasel learning under Luke Parker. I think these are great additions.
Mate, I'm with you. And you know the other thing as well, you've watched a lot of the content here, all you guys and girls in chat. Make sure you hit the like as well. There's 125 in here. So make sure you do that. Help Pom hit the Pomerism. But we talk about a lot about that whole imprint learning. It's a massive thing. Darling, like I say, one of the best leading pattern players. But Luke Parker, when I look at North Melbourne, the one thing I say about them is they're a wet fish when they have a fight, when they're in a fight. Luke Parker fucking punches people in VFL. Like, yeah. They need that winner's mentality, that win at all costs, just to rub off. I think they've got a great list. And you know what? Let's talk about the elephant in the room. If there was a club, if he wasn't up to Dan Houston, let's just take Dan Houston out of the equation. What I'm looking at here is North Melbourne have done the genius move. They've played their midfielders with a little bit of explosion off halfback. They then go into the midfield. Dan Houston is perfect for them. Like, a future first for them gets Dan Houston over the line. It blows everyone out of the water. And if Dan Houston is true and sincere, which is hard to ascertain, but this is where you go, man. Like, because I don't think under Clarkson they're far away.
No, I think they've still got a couple of issues in terms of that key defense piece, but you're right. So their future first is better than any offer that's going to come from Carlton or whoever else is linked with Dan Houston. You're right. If he's legit, he'll say, yeah, fine, North Melbourne, and the deal will get done. And then him alongside McKercher in that back line, maybe it hopefully pushes Zach Fisher out of that best 22. Maybe they can make him and Houston the halfbacks. It's not what I would personally do. He does, again, adds experience. I guess the only danger, the one caveat, and I think he is a better prospect than, say, a Zach Williams as an investment off halfback. Investing heavily into halfback can yield not amazing results because it is a relatively easy position to fill. He's obviously a different kettle of fish. That's just my one caveat. And I would still like them to address key defense and impact key defenders that can come in and impact straight away.
Sam Frost would be a great one here, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like Sam Frost here, and they've got a few young uns on the list.
They got
like
young
Sam
ones.
Frost, like Sam Frost would probably again suit this mold of bringing in a guy AFL standard who's got to set that training standard for them to all adhere to. Could be a real interesting one, this, couldn't it? Because I think they're in a good position. And just to answer Bevton's question, because it did make me chuckle, allow me not to... Look, I specified it was in my head, though. Like, you've got to give me that. I didn't just create the rumour. I specified it was in my head. I did. But no, North in a good position. LDU, people asking, do we think he stays or goes?
I think he stays. Why would he?
I think he stays.
I think he's your classic. Rumors come out in the preseason that he signed after round one, signs a big long extension, goes through to 2030, 2031. Like, I don't see why he would leave. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Gus asked the best questions. I love you, Gus. Look, his official from his agent was he wants to move for family reasons, which has then been speculated his missus. Like, I always say this, if you really want to come home, look, I've got a beautiful wife. If she wants to move somewhere, regardless if I want to or fucking not, I'm doing it.
That's how you ended up with the new fridge.
Exactly, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like if I turn to my missus and my missus says, I want to move to this suburb, and I said, oh, their football team's shit, she'd divorce me. Like, yeah. Or she'd go behind my back and sign the contract on my behalf, and I'd be watching Fox footy like this, going, hang about, when did I fucking sign with them? Did you know what I mean?
Yeah, mate. So, we talked about the other day, I have a fridge that has a window that lights up if you knock on it, and it's from the same reasons. So sometimes it just happens. I don't think he's said anywhere that he wants to win flags. Every player wants to win a flag, but I don't think that's his driving force. And there's no reason. How old is he? 28, 27, 28? Around that.
Look, he said he'll stay at Port. He ain't winning a flag at fucking Port either.
Well, that's what I was about to say, Pom. It's like he's not winning there anytime soon.
At this stage, he ain't winning a fucking flag at Carlton either. So, like his three options are basically no flag, but at least I'll get me 900k. Pick your 900k. But
I love they've made some calls on delisting players and potentially pushing out a couple to retirement. So I think they've done well so far this offseason.
Mate, they've good. The only one I was surprised at, and I'm not surprised, but Bigoa.
Yeah, Biggie.
This is what turns me on. That's the type of player that if you look at shit rebuilds or rebuilds that have taken too long, they have hung around on the list for 2-3 years waiting for them to be good.
Yeah. I'd rather than Biggie, I'd rather you bring in Adam Tomlinson, who, he's a 6 out of 10, but he's a 6 out of 10, rather than holding on to Biggie and going one day he might be a 7. So, and I think that's partially why they kept Pink on the list, and he's obviously not by no means amazing, but it's kind of like, well, we at least know what we're going to get.
And don't make me happy, mate. Do you know what I mean? Don't make me happy, because I've been strongly against it. But here we are. We're on to Port now. We're on to Port Adelaide. And Port Adelaide, Travis Boak is expected to play on next year. We're still waiting that. Few list decisions, though. Franny Evans, my boy, Tom Scully, Hugh Jackson, Kyle Marshall, Quinton Narkle and Logan Evans to worry about. Dan Houston obviously linked with an entire state, which is hard work. Ollie Lord, some loose links. Ivan Soldo, in one of the more bizarre trade requests, his missus and him didn't split up. She went to live in Dubai. She's come back, wants to get back together, but doesn't want to go to Adelaide. So he's trading to Victoria. One of the more bizarre ones, but I understand it. I'm a married man, Ivan, so I'd do the same. And Tom Clory, which is a real good signing for West Coast when we come on to them. They've got quite a few list spots. The big problem is, though, you can see why names are linked to leave, because they have got the draft capital of a guy that lives under the bridge.
Well, and to be fair, last year they had even less draft capital and still managed to bring in players. It just happened to be that those players were Radaglia and Zirk Thatcher, and guess what? They did exactly what we thought they would do during that final game of the year, and that was fuck all. Port Adelaide sell a lot into the future and just go, we'll kind of deal with it. And it has I mean, it's worked out because they win a lot of games. It just hasn't worked out in the sense that they win the really important ones. But it does put them in a tough position, and they are doing a lot of sort of. They have found some decent younger guys. Jace Burgoyne's a great example of someone who sort of took the year by horns this year, but I think that was. I don't think they're going to necessarily do that with all of the youngsters on their list. There are some list fillers, to say the least, on that list.
I don't mean to be negative about Port, but when I look at their list, I hear fart noises. And it's like the 11th oldest list next year. And Tiger HQ Spawn, like, they got fleeced for Ivan Solder. Ivan Solder's missus has finished
Ivan Solder as well.
Yeah. So she's finished being an Insta model in Dubai. She's coming home. Now he's coming home. It just it just looks meh. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've just looked at Norths, we looked at Hawks, even Melbourne's. We've looked at GWS's, Geelong's in this video. If I get rid of Rosie and Butters and JHF, I don't really care for it.
No, I don't love it. I'm just looking through their moves last year. 25, 76, 94 for Asava, which to me was crazy at the time. And I think it's still crazy. 4 coaches votes for the year. Ivan Soldo, they bought in for a bunch of picks in the 40s and future picks and all that sort of stuff, which at the time, I don't think I hated it, but that was before they also bought in Jordan Sweet, who ended up being the better ruckman, which was strange. I think Ivan Soldo, in theory, Pom, can be a mobile ruckman, forward, that sort of player. And then the Zerk Thatcher move was just strange. But they bought in last year Tom Anastopoulos, Lockie Charlson, Will Lorenz, Xavier Walsh, and Logan Evans in the mid-season draft. And the only one of them that's shown anything is Logan Evans, who was the mid-season draft. So it's tough to inject talent in when you have literally no picks, and if you're not Geelong, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I look at it like some people in chat, rightly, Alia is good. Do you know what I mean? Willie Rioli can be good on his day, but like when I think of players that are hard to replace, I'd say Rosie's hard to replace. Mm-hmm. I'd say Jason Horn-Francis, like they're mid-type players, but like there's loads of Alia in the league, Willie Rioli's, Mitch Giorgioldis, there's loads of them. Like, I don't think they're special, if you know what I mean. I don't look at that list, and I mean this with respect. It's coming across as disrespect. But even when we play Port Adelaide, I don't look at that list and go, fucking hell. Like, I look at it and go, we've got a chance here. We can beat this. We can beat these. And I look, and I think they're desperate for Ollie Wine's help to free Butters up, to free Rosie up. And then I look and you've got 36 and 54. No wonder they're asking for a first and a second for Dan Houston, which I think is criminal anyway. Is criminal, but like they need it. Like for me, they need Melbourne's picks at least. They need a top 10 pick. But I think these are another team in Struggle Town.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And again, they'll still probably be good next year, and they'll probably play finals and probably get knocked out. Alirali is a good player, as you said. But you're right. You can. The thing with Alirali is they've built a backline around him not playing on someone. So if anything shifts with that backline, it kind of struggles a bit more. The only one I will disagree with you on is Mitch Georgiades. I still think he ends up being a good forward. I think he ends up being a good key forward. But the rest of it, I don't know what the move is. They've got so many players out of contract. They've already got pretty close to full list as it stands, and no draft picks to replenish. So they kind of need. I mean, do they need Dan Houston to leave so that they can just put games into your Burgoynes of the world and hope that he does generate draft capital? And that's probably why they don't want a future pick necessarily. They probably want picks this year because they need to inject some talent.
Mate, I agree. Ben, great surname, first off the bat. look, I'll be honest. First, future second, definitely is value. Definitely is value, right? It definitely is. We're in a real world. But I will say this: halfback flankers. What was he? He was a rookie pick, wasn't he? Who's another good halfback flanker? Jordan Dawson. He was what, pick 54? Genuinely, halfbacks are either failed midfielders because Dan Houston was a third forward mid as a junior. Dawson was an inside midfielder, then went halfback and then came back to be an inside midfielder. I just think if you're spending more than a first on a halfback flanker, you want your bumps feeling. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
But
I would never do it. Who's linked to them, Tom?
Well, here we are. This is an interesting one because I feel like they've traded way too much futures. This a great question from the lovely Narelle. Good day to you, my darling. They're going to have to do it again, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean they're going to have to dip into those future picks. I think they're kind of stuck in a cycle. They're going to have to, and that's if Gold Coast want picks. What if Gold Coast? I know it's not going to happen. What if Gold Coast turn around and say, "We don't want picks. We actually just want a player." Like you've got no one that's going to tick that box. I don't think that's currently available. I'm not sure how they do it. Who's they've got? Is it Joe Richards, the other one that they're kind of linked to?
Yeah, they've got Joe Richards, which is interesting because Collingwood have extended their deal, and at first, just going through the Port forums that I like to do, where I like to have a little bit of a spy what you're saying. Everyone was saying 54 will get it done, but the talk is now it's a multi-year deal, so obviously Collingwood are going to want a hell of a lot more than that. Be interesting, though, because Jack Lacocious, the rumours are, I don't know how true, but the South Australian is reporting it's 800k minimum, and Port are going to pay a portion of that. I mean, Gold Coast are going to pay a portion of that. I mean, no, Port are going to take the full value, which may depreciate it to that 36. Like, if they pay, it will depreciate it.
It can't, yeah. 36 doesn't get it done for me. That's just my gut feel. That's my gut feel.
If Gold Coast want 900k off the book. No, but let's just think about it. What's Jack Lacocious worth if he wasn't on a ridiculous salary? Probably a future first?
Yeah, maybe a late first, early second.
So let's just say pick 10. We'll meet in the middle, right? If you're paying 900, 22 in it then suddenly. If you're paying the full whack, you're getting that off our books, we can't keep him. 24, it's depreciating it a bit. Like probably not to 36, but a future second probably helps you do it.
Yeah, the salary dump angle does make more sense a bit. The thing I hate about the salary dump in the AFL is let's say he's got 2 years left on 900k, goes to Port Adelaide, extends for 4 years at an average rate of 50k extra per those extra years, and it's just a wash, and they don't actually get punished for it. But yeah, the salary dump angle, that does make a bit more sense.
I'm a big fan of Jack Lacocious, just
me too
as well.
Oh, dude. I'd love him in the theoretical Jack Silvani role at Carlton. Like, I think
big fan.
15 clubs would love him.
Big fan of Loco. You know what, though? This isn't bad from him. When I was looking at Dan Houston and Collingwood saying they wanted players, I think because Collingwood, Gold Coast need and Richmond are so linked in all these deals, how hard is it for Collingwood to make the phone call and say, right, look, let's get involved. Gold Coast, us, you, let's get involved. Let's get Dan Houston to us. Let's get this all sorted one fell swoop. Because Gold Coast have said, which is a lie, because we know Gold Coast don't value draft picks. They're like your brother when he gets 100 quid from his nana in a sweet shop round Christmas. He's just buying everything. They don't want to give 12 for Noble, so why don't you meet them in the middle and say, let's get a deal done? Right? Let's get a deal done. So I think that's a way, but where's MA? Where's his best position? Oh, Jack Lacocious, I think forward.
Me too.
And I think that's probably why he wants to leave.
Me too. And you play him forward, and then when he's 30 and he's not impacting in the same way, you put him behind the ball, and he all of a sudden becomes that all-Australian intercept sort of player. So, yeah, forward absolutely is his best spot.
Well, we come to a team that I think are going to be everyone's favourite this window. If you want draft picks, as you can see here, 2 list spots, a lot of work to do on the table. It looks like they're going to lose 4 more players, which takes them to 28. Then you look at these picks. They've got 9 of them. They're going to get good picks in. So it means they're going to have a surplus around probably 39, 41, 47, which are key point building picks. Remember that for a later video. And it looks like the rebuild is beginning to happen, isn't it? And this is why just earlier I said if I was Collingwood, I'd be on the phone to Gold Coast, Port, Richmond, saying let's join together and let's see if we can get a trade going, because I think this would help Richmond. They have a lot of power in that. But they're a fascinating list conundrum, aren't they? Because they're about to enter the rebuild. They're losing Baker, Bolton, Rioli and Graham. I'd say 2 of them are probably quite hard, Baker and Bolton, because they are that age. People forget, though, they are the 12th oldest team in the league, so they're not as old as people say they are. They've got some youth coming through. This is a fascinating one, isn't it? Because I feel like Richmond are really going to be the key to a lot of people's trade windows.
Yeah. I feel a bit bad for Richmond fans. I don't, because they won 3 flags and I fucking hate them. But for the sake of argument, I'll pretend I feel bad for them. I think from a list perspective, losing all of Baker, Bolton, Rioli, and Graham at this point, they're not the players you really want to lose in a rebuild in terms of age and where your list profile's at. Yes, you will get it'll. You'll end up getting a decent return of draft picks, but I think this can really sting teams when it's the guys around that 25, 26, 27-year-old group leave and an already struggling team. It lengthens the gap or widens the gap between those top age veterans and the young guys, and then you are really going all in now on. We're literally starting from scratch. We're losing these 4 guys who could still be playing for us in 5-6 years and keeping us semi-relevant. We're going all in, hitting the bottom of the draft, going in hard and trying to, basically do a Carlton 2015 and grow from nothing. And the other part, Pom, before we start analysing the actual list, the thing that probably leaves a bad taste in my mouth is that for a couple of years now, you and I have been talking about this list like they probably need to start getting towards that rebuild ahead of Tassie, all that. We've talked about it. And then they went out and bought Taranto and Hopper, and it just never really made sense to me. So they're kind of gone all in. Oh no, now we're going out, and now they're, as a result, there's a bit of confusion, and now they're losing 4 guys that still could be core parts of that team. So yeah, and they've got guys like Dion Prestia and Voston's good and stuff, but like they're the sort of players I'd probably be trying to get some value for. Obviously, they're not in control of who wants to leave the club, but I just think it's a bit disappointing to have those core group of mid-age players all wanting to leave at once.
No, I agree, and Tiger HQ, good day to you, mate. I said 2 out of the 4. The 2 I was referring to was Rioli and Bolton. I think Liam Baker, halfback, I think you can replace him. Jack Graham, I think he's a great get for West Coast because I think that their senior players are way too old, where I think he's got that grit, so I think he needs him. But I did want to look at a trade here because I think they are probably going to get... We hate the AFL, but I'm telling you now, they're getting 3 picks in the top 15 for them.
Disgusting.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Just deal with that. Like, deal with that. Don't come at me, anyone in the chat. It's fucking happening. I don't care. So let's just say, I think it's unlikely, but let's just say, tell you what, let's go crazy. Let's say it's 6 and 9. And let's say West Coast do break it down. So we'll just make it an average pick. But let's say they have that, right? Suddenly that's 28, right? So they've got a lot of work to do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can see this happening, that they trade 39, 41, 47 to Brisbane and the AFL kick off. They'll pay overs for it. It gives them more picks, but it allows the way the deficit work to be spread, because currently the way the deficit works, that would just kill pick 18.
Yeah.
And then they have another pick, 55, isn't it, or something, 56 and 69? By doing it that way, it spreads the debt, right? I can see that happening and Richmond having a pick. And in this draft here, let's just do that as maths, right? So let's just say you take Jaeger. Let's just say you take Harvey Langford. Let's just say, already look at this. Toby Travelaga. Then you've got Xavier Lindsay, Joe Berry potentially. You've got so many options. Richmond suddenly bringing 7 top talents. And then we're talking about Richmond as if they're North Melbourne. I'm telling you now, I hate Richmond, don't get me wrong. But when people are saying, oh, Richmond, it's doom and gloom, I hate the Taranto deal and the Hopper deal. But if it was either genius or if it was luck, the fact this draft that is so fucking deep
I think it was
when your rebuild starts is either the best list management or the most fortuitous bit of luck ever. But I'm telling you right now, Richmond, I love Uze. I love his attitude. I love the way that he's trying to separate it from the dynasty. He's going to get 8 quality kids in. And they've got I think they've got enough seniority on that list. Prestia, Vlostin,
Lynch
they've got senior midfielders. They've got enough there, I think, to protect them youngsters for 2 years. So, yeah, I think they're all right.
Yeah, my final thought is probably that if they do end up with 6, 7 picks in the early part of the draft, it allows you to take risks you might not take if you've only got 1 or 2. So we saw the Blues do that in 2015 where they took who was it? Charlie, Harry, was it Wadering as well that year? Cunningham, Sauce. So it gives you an opportunity, whereas you might just take the best available mid with your 2 early picks. If you got 6 or 7, you can take a key forward, a key back, a defender, a couple of mids. It really allows you to, in a deep draft like this, it doesn't work every year, but in a draft, if this goes the way we think it does, it is an opportunity to sort of address a few needs all at once. And it will lead to pain for a while, I think, but that's fine.
It could go fucking Pete Tong though as well.
It could, and absolutely could, and that's why the fact that you're losing potentially 4 guys in their mid-20s about to come into their peak, that's why it hurts, because the downside is it's fucked. You lost these guys, and also your draft picks don't turn into anything.
Dog,
I always prefer known quantities.
I have got to say, though, when the price is currently quoted from both parties at pick 9, pick 12, and fucking... I mean, I hope West Coast aren't fucking stupid and give pick 3 for Liam Baker and thing, but then again, nothing... I don't...
Nothing surprised.
Right? But I'd probably do it. Hey, Mel, I was quite nice. I've just complimented you, but I'm sure you hate Carlton. You're a Richmond man. The rivalry's world.
We can hate Richmond, but also talk about, the moves they can make in a positive way.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And Wayne, I hate to say it, but you know me, I'm a traditionalist. There's nothing that would make me happier than see Carlton, Essendon, Collingwood and Richmond all fighting for Premiership glory. That's the dream. All 4 of us really, really good. Really, really, really good teams. So, Dustin Martin, I don't believe the paperwork has been lodged. Hence, the AFL confirmed they were going to. He was still an unrestricted free agent. So,
I don't think he's moving. I think he's retired.
I don't think it has been lodged as of yet. Hey, DRV, mate, I won't suffer. I mean, fair play. Look, you're getting rid of Liam Baker, half-back, half-forward. They are tough to find. Another half-back, mid-forward, fair what? if it's 1-3-6-9, fuck, I'd be throwing in 2 other players just out of the goodness of my heart. We did St Kilda.
Guilty.
We did St Kilda last show because we had a lot of Saints fans in. So we'll jump straight to a club that I feel are in a real conundrum at the moment. They're in a real good...
Breaking news, Pom, sorry. According to Mitch Cleary, Melbourne's head of leadership, Jim Plunkett, has departed the club. So
told you! Look, I've just revealed it. He's watched this show and he's gone, fuck.
Sam McClure has just said that Clayton Oliver wants to be traded to Geelong. So,
hey, look at that! I did it before Mitch. Sorry, mate. Unlucky, mate.
And Bailey Smith has officially requested a trade, which we already knew. Anyway, that's the breaking news I'm just getting texted about. So,
well, there you are. Well, there we are. We've got Sydney up next. And, Sydney, I think, you know what people say? Sydney have made finals. They've got battered, though, all the time. Wheels are off. I don't think it's as bad as that. I really don't think it's as bad as that. But I do think Sydney here need to look at just doing what they always do, freshen it up a little bit, make it a little bit sexy. Only the 8th oldest list as well. So people always forget that as well. When people see success, they assume oldest list. But Collingwood and Geelong and the Dogs, who we're going to talk about later, are the oldest lists in this one. But this is a fascinating one because they've re-signed Francis, which I need to kill because I remember my mate texted me the other day going, can't believe he signed. But
I don't mind him as a death piece.
Oh, I don't, but you can see here, Chad Warner has been heavily linked. Is it an official source? It wasn't when it was on here. It was my idea, but it's now an official source.
That's because someone's watching the show, Pom, and writing the article.
Well, fucking Clayton Oliver's Melbourne's completely imploded. But Sam Frost, Finn McGuinness, these are very Sydney deals. But I look at the draft here, and I think this draft is perfect for Sydney.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, Sydney are pretty good drafters and developers. And I'm completely biased here because I own him in dynasty leagues. But the only one of recent times that I think they've sort of brought in and hasn't had an opportunity to develop is like Angus Sheldrick, maybe Constanti. But I mean, what was he? He's a kind of small forward type player in his draft, wasn't he? So that's hard to nail anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think Wayne's right. Probably that KPF. People say they need a key defender as well. Is it as simple as 18 and 19? That's going to be what, 22, 21, 22? That you just bid on the Whitlocks and just move on with your life?
I mean, probably. It's Sydney love to bid on players. They're not afraid to do it like a lot of the other clubs. The issue with them is their picks are always really late in the draft, so they can't actually impact that early. Sydney's list, I'm not worried about Sydney's list in the way that the media has reacted to them losing the grand final. Because if I kept making grand finals and losing, I'd know at least I'm doing something right. The tall forwards is probably an issue. It's very hard to address that though. That is a very hard thing to address. We saw Geelong do it a couple of years ago, Pom, where they went all in and said, all right, we've tried to develop, we've tried some higgledy-piggledy patch jobs, we're just buying Jeremy Cameron. So is there an opportunity for Sydney to buy their version of Jeremy Cameron? I'm not sure who it is, but is there an opportunity for them to do something like that?
Do you reckon this is like where you maybe sound out some of the teams who maybe have underperformed? So like Nate Caddy, players like that. The problem is you're interstate, aren't you? But my counter argument to that is Australia is quite big, but surely Sydney's a big club, is it not?
Yeah.
It is. Am I totally off the mark? But am I going to shit 10th or play for a top 4 side?
Well, if I was them, and I know it's not a key forward, but the guys I'd be ringing are like Tim Membry. Can you come in and just be consistently kick me a goal and a half a game, 2 goals a game because Joel Amarty's not getting the job done. That's probably a relatively cost-effective way of doing it. And then if you're talking like they want to go all in on a key forward, they call Carlton and go, we want Harry Mackay. Now, that's not going to happen. But that's the big play, is find a player who, because they're just key forwards, there's just not that many that are available. But guys like Tim Membry are going to come in and give them upside or a higher floor.
You know, because I think Amarty is solid and Logan McDonald, incredible talent. You know who it is? Ben King.
Oh, yeah. All in on Ben King.
Well, he already lives interstate. Sydney. I mean, where would you rather live? Like, Gold Coast is just...
Digsby's in chat. He's called it as well.
Yeah, Digsby. Tell you, honestly, get Ben King in. You know what I mean? Because who wants to fuck around at Gold Coast? It's brilliant if you're 25 and you're doing porn with schoolies, which is evidently a new thing. Do you know what I mean? But, like, who wants to fucking live there? It's like God's waiting room and party central. Go to a proper footballing city. Come to... Hey, I should be the advert. Come to a proper footballing city. Come to Sydney.
Yeah, I'm just looking through the list of available guys that are out of contract at the moment. There's just none that tick those boxes. But yeah, go for a big swing. I don't know. I'd be looking at Tim Membry. I was going to say as a joke, Charlie Dixon, but that's not even funny.
I just feel like they just need to bolster their... Because I don't think their key position forward and defence stocks are horrible.
No, but I think they just need consistency.
I think Sam Frost, Ben King, change that. I think if you bring them two in, fuck me, there you are. You've got your steadies.
Maybe they're someone that brings in a Denver Granger Barras and turns him into the next big thing or something as well. It's just, I feel like players that go to Sydney tend to develop well.
Yeah, mate, I went to Gold Coast once, massive night out. It was before Mrs. Pom, and it was wild. Let's put it that way. it was wild. It's why I grade now. But Sydney in a good position. I think they've got a lot of sexy work to do on and off the field. Eagles, we have talked a lot about young lists. We are looking here at next year's third youngest list. Only Hawthorn and North are younger than these mob, and a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. We talked in my mock draft that they would be one of the clubs I thought might look at trading down. It's come out that they maybe want to do that, or maybe dangle 3 for multiple picks who are looking to target players. Fremantle, we're looking at you for when you buy Chad Warner there. A bit of work to do in the off-season. Jai Cully, Colby Burgill, Josh Rotham, Alex Witherden, and Luke Edwards still looking for deals. It looks like Rotham has been heavily linked with Essendon. Tom Barras, he's leaving. Jack Darling is going to North. They've got a bolster with McQualter coming in. Graham and Baker are there. More expected to come because McQualter's got a lot of reputation. I think 3 dropping down. If they can drop 3 down, suddenly they're in it. But this is a list here where it's different to North. For me, it feels like they've clung on too much to the window. And now you see that disjointedness, because me and Let Dog used to say this about Carlton's rebuild. Almost fuck all when you look at the ages in that 25 bracket. It's like young or old. It's like a Hollywood sex scandal. It's either too old or underage. There isn't anyone the right age.
No, the only person dating an age-appropriate person is fucking John Wick. So, yeah, they're an interesting spot. They won that flag. They went all in on Tim Kelly. That didn't really work. They've been shit since. They got a lot of names on the list I like. They've kind of gone for upside swings, I think, on a lot of their draftees, and it hasn't paid off. Weirdly enough, guys like Brady Hoff, who
What do you reckon Sydney would say to pick 3, Jeremy McGovern, and a future first with Sydney's second rounder coming back and Chad Warner?
They'd say yes.
Do you reckon that's fair on Eagles?
I think Eagles are overpaying, but I think you probably have to overpay to get someone like him in.
Even though he's out of contract next year, do you reckon they could just do it for a future first and McGovern and a little bit of like third for seconds?
I think I think they'd want to pick this year. If it's going to happen this off season, I'd say it's 3 and McGovern and probably does end up being something else. I think that's probably a slight overpay for West Coast. Is that the right move? Would be my question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
Because I agree they need to bring it in, but I mean, it's interesting because always I understand. Parfit just worries me because Carlton
can't
did that.
bring in. You can't bring in Parfit. Parfit will end up with Carlton, I'm sure of it.
Tom Clory, I love it because I think it's a bit of protection. But like what Digby's saying, who's your successor to the young lad? Who's it? I could see Denver Granger Barras coming in. I like this from Raymond, right? Haynes, I really do like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I really do.
I don't think you'd get much for him out of contract, mid-season draftee, older when he was drafted, and has had a lot of injuries. But I do actually quite like Hayes as a player. I just don't think you get much for him if you're St Kilda. If that was the question.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's probably going to be one of them back-ended fourth rounder deals, isn't it? That gets
where the picks don't end up being used. Yeah.
But these are an interesting one because like pick 3, I mean, you just look at who owns these picks at the minute. Like the most likeliest one here is like Fremantle try and jump the queue, innit? But the problem is they're tied up with the Bolton deal.
Exactly. They want to get out of those picks so that they don't have them to offer for Bolton. They want to, so maybe they do jump ahead, take a pick, and go, well, we can't have pick 3 for Bolton. It's going to have to be pick 16. Maybe it's something like that. But
is this something that if you're Carlton, you maybe look at going 11 for 17 and 19? Right? Do you know what I mean? You go 11, 7, and 19 and a future second. You pay just a little bit overs to drop down. And then you look at doing that trade for 3, trying to get up to 3. Like if you're Carlton who wants to attack the draft, or because you're willing to spend a future first and bring in a second this year, is that something that you try and do and go, well, can we get up to 3?
That's a good question. Depends.
I mean, the problem is we don't need a midfielder.
Well, I was going to say, so the second best player or the best player isn't even available to be selected. So moving up is probably not the move. Moving up into that top 3 because, yeah, the couple of them, you know the guys you're not going to get, and they're probably the ones you do want, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like when you look at their list, they need to convert that into two players here.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting.
It could be 9 and 16, maybe. I mean, that's unders, I'd say, but it could be something like that. What
do we reckon Soldo's worth? Because I think you've got to come into the account of you've always got to remember, Raymond, that they've only just bought him, and
Yeah.
but they paid what from memory? Want it like a second and like shit picks coming back.
So traded from Richmond to Port Adelaide for picks 41.
For 1573. So that 1573 minus 273. So it was rough. Fucking hell.
Yeah, because it was a 41, 49, a future second, and a future fourth. So it was the equivalent
so it was roughly
of
pick 12.
Yeah, like in points, yes. Yeah, in points. So minimum, I'd say Port Adelaide are going to be asking for a second, minimum. And they're probably going to be asking for more than that.
It's probably this pick here that
Probably.
they want, 24.
Which, to be honest, if I was St Kilda, I just wouldn't do it. But that's what Port will be asking for. Because I'd be like, well, mate, he hasn't worked out for you guys. Why are we paying for your mistakes?
But if you threw in his, which takes a little bit... I mean, the only reason that you'd maybe... I reckon that's probably a fair pick. I reckon 24 is a fair pick. Because you're going to get the compensation for battle, aren't you? Which will probably be about here.
Yeah, it'll be... I think that'll end up being pick 19-ish. Although it can't be pick 19 because Sydney's pick has to be pick 19 because that was the North Melbourne priority pick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So probably 20 for battle if not. I don't remember what the bands are. If there's a mid.
Well, they reckon it's banned 1.5, so it's not.
So they're making it up. Okay, right.
So the talk is it might be outside the top 4, so it might be here.
Yeah. So they're literally just going to make up a slot for it. Cool.
Because I think if you went 43 and Hayes, I mean, you don't. Port we've talked about. They need picks.
Yeah, Port won't accept that. It's probably, for me, it's somewhere in the middle, but 24 probably ends up getting it done, I guess. It's going
to be interesting.
Yeah, blows out.
And then we finish with, I think, a team in absolute Scooby-Doo. The third oldest list in the league. 32
got 3 cricketers on their list, 4 tradies, and 18 of the best players in the comp, and I cannot work it out.
That they have got a lot of issues. Been linked with Peatling, Xavier O'Hallahan, and Adam Tomlinson. Bailey Smith is gone. Jack McRae is no real loss to them because they've been using him as a half forward. Caleb Daniel linked to leave, and so is Riley Garcia. A lot of decisions. Charlie Clark, Garcia, Johannesson, and Keith needing contract. A team that is desperate for youth. That definitely isn't in the window to win a flag now. Interesting, this one, isn't it?
It's really hard. So I just look at their starting 22 and I go, why isn't this team winning more games? And I just can't work it out. And at one point during the year, they looked like the best team in the comp. And then at other parts, they looked like the worst team in the comp. So Bailey Smith goes out. It'll be a first and then probably some back-ending bullshit are coming back the other way. But it'll be, pick 16. Jack McRae, I ran him through some projector things the other day, Pom, which, anyway, we'll talk about that later. But that came out at about pick 43, which is what St Kilda has. That will upset Western Bulldogs fans because he used to be an All-Australian player, but he's now an old inside mid that's getting paid, 900 plus a year or whatever it is. You're not getting much for him. So you'll take your 43, I think, and be happy with it. Or maybe there'll be some trading down. Caleb Daniel, I think he's a good get for wherever he goes, but clearly not playing. Riley Garcia is the one I don't want to lose, to be honest. Other than Bailey Smith, is the one I don't want to lose if I'm the Bulldogs. He's like a young player who has upside, has shown something in senior footy. And I guess the question for him is, how much am I actually going to play? Because I've got all these talented guys that just don't seem to get consistent footy.
He's definitely someone, Chills, that I think a lot of clubs will look at. If you're looking for a depth, like we talk about, like Carlton have been linked to lose some players we consider depth. Riley Garcia definitely is that mould of a massive ball winner, 23 years old. Are you bringing in a depth player? When you look at his VFL form as well this year, It's been nothing short of sensational, and he's kicked goals as well, and he's shown he can goal kick. Is this where you look at him and you think, well, you know what, we can probably get him a cut price deal? But Travis, my Brisbane friend, when the Lions beat the Dogs, was our
tipping. I'm going to assume tipping point.
Yeah, spot on. I think you did kill him. But you know who I wanted to talk about? No one's talked about this. And I'm going to give you another world's first. Unrestricted free agent next year.
He will become the highest paid player in the AFL.
Unrestricted free agent alert. Right? McRae's going, Bailey Smith's going. It's the third oldest list in the league. It's only going to get older. This guy can walk next year for coin. I've got two questions. One, people are looking at Clayton Oliver, looking for goal-kicking mids. Petrarca had 5 clubs after him. Marcus Bontempelli at 28 years old. Is he going to, 1, sign next year? And 2, if you're in the Premiership window, is this someone right now you are saying to Dogs, next year we can offer him 1.8 million. We can blow him out of the water. We're willing right now to do 2 firsts. Right now, take him off your hands. You have your picks in there. You're ready to go. Give us Bont. Come on, Dog, let's start the rumour.
I know. But I think if this is an American sport that is on the table, I think Bont just plays at the Bulldogs. I think
okay, hypothetical, Sydney.
Hypothetical.
Lose Chad Warner. He goes to Fremantle. Are you ringing?
I mean, I'm ringing. I'm ringing. Yeah, I'm calling for Marcus Bontempelli if I'm every club, to be honest. I just think realistically, the human element of it means that he'll stay at the Dogs. He'll sign a fucking big contract to play it, and they'll do the big Bont dog for life post. I think if we were a more aggressive dog for life, if we were a more aggressive sport with proper player movement, Marcus Bontempelli is a prime candidate to move pre-agent. But I think in reality, I think he's just he's just there forever. I think. As much as I want to start a rumour that Bontempelli is getting traded to Sydney.
Goal kicking mid, Marcus Bontempelli. Picture the scene. Tom de Koning taps down. George Hewitt handball out to Cripps. Cripps over the top. Marcus Bontempelli. It's Marcus Bontempelli. Fixed it.
Yeah, he fixes a lot of fucking problems in a lot of clubs.
Dan Houston, never heard of him. Sam de Koning, who's he? Tom's shit brother. Marcus Bontempelli, there's a real footballer, baby.
He's so good. You know he has more career Brownlow votes than Patrick Cripps, who's won 2 Brownlows.
Mate, doesn't surprise. Mate, you know I don't like buying superstars, but I'm telling you, I looked at this and I was like, unrestricted free agents, so they have no power. This club, big pom call, bottom 6 next year. Like, when we've gone through clubs who are desperate for who don't have a lot of picks. Adelaide, he suits. Brisbane, if Brisbane could pull that off, fuck me. Carlton, Collingwood's midfield is aging.
If you find a team he doesn't suit, let me know.
Yeah, okay. It's Marcus Bontempelli, he suits all clubs. But I'm telling you, how look, the media in this country make up rumours, right? The most logical rumour when they went with the Petrarca one is Marcus Bontempelli. Marcus Bontempelli is playing for a team about to implode.
Well, people in the comments, head over to Big Footy, start a Marcus Bontempelli to Sydney rumour, and we'll see how quickly Sam Edmund or whoever it is runs with it tomorrow. Oh, not Sam Edmund. Sam McClure.
Oh, you know what? Right. I've loved this. But, I mean, chat, I will get this all done. I will make it look sexy. And me and Let Dog, we've got something sexy to show you. I will just load it up now. But we will do a special dedicated video on this. But
it's a little preview for those who stick around.
So for all of you 120 who are still here, we have made the world's first. This is the world's first. This doesn't exist in this country. Now, this has been ratified as well by 2 active AFL list managers as well. Just so you know, this is how we test shit in this fucking place. We don't test shit like other YouTubers who just say it works. We fucking make it work. We have created... Look, here, I need to move screens so I can actually see what I'm looking at. Give me a sec.
Damien Hillis, his member for 10 months, says, Bont to Sydney. Beautiful stuff. Mate,
I love it. But what we've got here is an actual rough AFL historical trade calculator. So you've got a load of things on here. Look, I'll just get rid of it so you don't have to worry about it because no one cares. But here you are. Look, you've got
how it works, no one cares. They just want to know, does it work?
But roughly this gives you like a very, very loose, about within 1,000 points, I'd say. And why them fluctuations exist is if you really want him, his contract status. But this is just based on pound for pound, roughly what they're worth. Got like a little thing here. So that's something that we'll start playing around with.
Yeah, what it does do, it accounts for sort of how old the player is in the position they play. What it doesn't account for is like contract length. Are they in contract? Are they out of contract? So, for instance, Jack Lukosius, we value, or the data values as worth more than Daniel Rioli because it's a lot harder to find a goal kicking forward than it is to find a halfback player. Obviously, in reality, Rioli's got 4 years left or whatever on deal, blah, blah, blah. But as just an indicator for performance-based value, it checks out if you look at it historically, and it's been ratified, as Pom said, by people in the industry.
Mate, tell you, you get it all here, ladies and gentlemen. But you know, the 2 numbers you'll see here is the true value. So that's the value before anything's adjusted. Just a bit like TPI when you watch the rating show, we just give you what they've scored. This actual value is that adjustment. So that is based against the difficulty of drafting them, the difficulty of how many years a player has playing the amount of games they've played to up to that point based on their position, all that kind of thing. And then it spits out a little rough value for you to play with. We've tested this with historical trades as well. So Jeremy Carman, Tim Kelly explains why he's expensive. So we'll have a bit of a play with that because when we start doing our trade shows, we can start seeing if they've overpaid or not. So, yeah, we'll do a dedicated video on that. You'll enjoy that. It's real good fun. But
it is good. It is good.
But,
and I think...
How good is it? You've got 2 nerds here who like maths.
Yeah, we like maths, so we're going to teach you maths through football.
Hey, there you are. But anyway, chat, thank you very much for sticking around. Thank you very much, Let Dog, for doing that.
That's right, mate.
We'll be back next week. No doubt Let Dog will hijack some of the live rundown shows. We'll get him back. But look after yourselves, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.